Everybody, it's Marie from Skeletorama again. Welcome back to my channel. Give it a house shift. How's everybody doing? I'm doing okay. So as you can tell, this ended up being, of course, one of my projects. I thought, oh yeah, I can squeeze this into an hour. Maybe not so much. So we are going to do part 2 now. I'm doing all these separate because I basically went through, once I realized how long this was going to take, I thought, okay, I'll finish the whole thing and then I will carve it up into smaller chunks. So that's what I did. So I don't have where we're at right now to kind of show you, which you'll see in a second anyway, but because it's done, right? So anyways, we're doing part 2. So we're going to do finishes on the different parts of the doll, and then we're going to put the doll together. And so sit back and enjoy, and hope you have fun. So I have put the stuff on the other side and cut it out and sanded and fixed the holes and things. So we are ready to move on to the next step. So we are going to be covering these with a clear gesso to protect them when we do some other things to them. But before we do that, you want to go ahead, if you're going to ink edges and things like that, you want to do it before you put the gesso on, because otherwise it won't go on there correctly. So what I've done, since we're doing kind of teals and blues, is I've pulled out 2 different ink pads. These are both pigment ink. One of them is a dark blue, one of them is kind of a teal. And since I wasn't sure which one I would like better on what, I grabbed a couple of the pieces that I cut off when I was trimming things up and put them on there. So this is the lighter blue, the warm breeze, which is more of a teal. And then this is the twilight on the outside. And same here, this is the warm breeze, and that's the twilight. So I think I'm actually kind of liking the warm breeze for these 2, and then maybe the twilight for everything else. So let's go ahead and do that. And I've also cut out those books, and then I cut out the little escutcheon plate. And as you can see by the white core in there, I have not inked this yet. This we're going to do in the brown, these 2. So actually we'll do those first. And since it had like the holes for things, I went ahead and cut those out with my craft knife. But of course, yeah, it's going to leave that white core to it, because after cutting a bunch of stuff out, my craft knife is not as sharp as it could be. So it's not playing very nicely with things. So we'll do that, and then we'll get these 2, and that should make that part disappear. Pretty good. And this is the Gathered Twigs Distress ink. So it's just a nice brown color. Kind of get in there. See, that's much better. All right. Do the same with the books, because we may be using these on there, and even if we don't, it'll still look good for when I do go to use it on something. I'll want to ink the edges anyway, so that works. And it gets rid of that core of the paper that you get when you cut it, so it doesn't look like, hey, I just cut this thing out and stuck it on there. It's like, hey, I cut this thing out, spent a second inking it, and then stuck it on there. But all right, so these can go up here, these can go off to the side. So there's those. And so I think we'll go ahead and do this one here with the warm breeze. So this is my Ranger cut and dry foam. You can use an ink blending tool, you can use whatever you like, and you're just going to do the edges, the very edges of it. And this is a pigment ink, so it is not water reactive, and it will be permanent. So like if you were to do this with, say, Distress ink that's water reactive, when you go to put your clear gesso on there, since gesso has a liquid component that's water, it'll actually react to it and spread it out. This will not move. So get around the edges of this one too. And then we don't need to worry about this or these little holes, just because they're going to be covered up by the other pieces. All right, so there's that on these 2, and that looks cool. And then we'll use the darker one on everything else. And so same sponge, just use the other side. And then we're just kind of darkening these edges up a bit. And I'm trying not to go too far up, because I don't want to, you know, make it blue. I just want to kind of hide those edges and give it a little bit of a highlight on there. And then when you get to a part like that, you just kind of go over a little bit like that. See? Same with this side. just the littlest bit. And then just kind of go over on there. And again, that's going to be, you know, stuck down, so. All right, so there's that one. Do the same to the arms. And then if we want to do any kind of stamping for texture on these, again, you're going to want to do that before you put the gesso on. Because once you put the gesso on, it's going to kind of seal it. And then I know I mentioned that, you know, I put the black gesso on the edges of all the pieces so that I could paint them first and then paper it. And then, of course, as I always do, I spaced off that that's what I was going to do. So, yeah, we're going to have to either paint very carefully or I'll use the gilding waxes because the gilding waxes tend to not, they're a lot easier to control than the paint. So that's what we'll do to our edges. And we can pick a color that'll work nice with this as well. And that's what I did on these. These are the gilding waxes on the edges of these. Okay. See how it kind of hides that and gives it kind of a cool look. And so it wouldn't be a project if I didn't get ink everywhere. So lovely. You do kind of have to be careful because pigment ink takes a while to dry. So like one of the pieces I got like a little fingerprint smudge, but kind of worked it out. And we're going to do something over that anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. All right. So now let's take a look at this piece here. And this is going to be the back. This is going to be the front. And this is our little plate. So if we wanted to put this on here, you know, we're going to want to probably do it before we gesso. Although if we want to do any stamping, we would do that first. And then with the arms and the legs, wow, really? These things, whatever these are, you know, if we want to do any kind of stamping stuff to that, again, we're going to do it before we gesso them. We want them going in the same direction, which I'm failing at. There we go. All right, so there's that. So now I have a bunch of different things, and we would probably want to gesso before we do some of them, but I have some stencils here. So, and these are fairly small scale stencils, so we can maybe use some different texture paste things in here as well. And I have some different ones. I have a gold modeling paste and like a champagne gold modeling paste. It would probably look cool. I do have plaster paste. Now this is going to be white, so if we use that, we would then have to go over with some kind of paint or something on this. And then I have the copper crackle, which is really cool because when you put that on there, it's going to do like a crackle paste. So not only do you get your whatever you put, but you get the little cracks as well. So I think for all these, it'd probably be best if we went ahead and gessoed the pieces first. And for that, I'm going to use a clear gesso. If you don't have clear gesso, just put a layer of Mod Podge on it. Basically what you want to do is you want to seal this paper so that we can do stuff to it. You know, we could put, say, paint, and if you don't like the paint and you're quick, you wipe it off. But if you try to put paint on there, it's going to soak into your paper really quick, and it's not going to go on the way you want it to go. With gesso or with the Mod Podge, you can then move your stuff on top of it if you want to do extra paint things. So that's what I'm going to do, and of course, obviously, I'll fast forward as I'm doing that, and then I'll join you back once everything has been gessoed on both sides for these pieces here and dried, and then we can move on to what's next. So our gesso is dry on all of these pieces, and these obviously as well. So we can go ahead and paint the bottoms of both of these. So for that, I'm going to use this. This is my Metallique. It's Stormy Ocean is the color, and it's just beautiful. Open it here. See, look at that. Isn't that pretty? All right. So let's see. We'll get a medium brush just in case. And so I'm going to paint the bottom of these. And then on the doll itself, the paper doll head will cover the front, but since this one only went up to here, it won't cover the back. So we're going to go ahead and do the back of the doll's head as well. I'm sure I'll come up with something to put on it, but this will help in the interim. And the edges will be the same as the rest of the edges. So, and then we'll do the front just in case anything peeks through. I doubt it, but better safe than sorry. Okay, there we go. As you can see, the metallic really looks good on the black gesso. So since this one can sort of be seen, we're going to do a second coat on it just to make the color a little bit more even. Now with these, I wanted to do something on them. So one of the first things I'm going to do is make sure that they're facing in the same direction. A lot of times I've done that where it's like, oh, I'm just going to put something on one side just to find out that I did, say, 4 of them on one side and 4 of them on the other. So definitely don't need that. Okay, so they're all facing in the same direction. So what I was going to use is this. This is a stamp. It's Graphic 45. It's an old one. It's from the Voyage Beneath the Sea, which is the kit they just re-released as a collector's edition, but these are the original stamps from it. So this fits really nicely here on this. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to lay this down here. I'm going to bring the piece to it just because, you know, it gets kind of hard to see where you're at when you're stamping down like that. So we'll bring the piece to that and hope for the best. So I'm using the pigment ink. This is Nocturne. And if you want, you can do this and you can emboss them as well. I just didn't want to mess with embossing them. So where you can see, so I'm going to put some ink on here. Yeah, I looked through, I have the Tim Holtz collage papers, but all of them had patterns that were just too big for it, and we just want something small. Alright, so we're going to take this, and we're going to press it down, making sure not to move it. And there we go. Okay, so we're going to do the same with all these. Alright, so what you'll notice here, see how sharp this is? The longer it sits and reacts to the gesso, the more it's going to kind of spread out a little bit because it's a pigment ink, which is fine. That's kind of what we want. So we're just going to do this, I think, on one side. I think both sides would be a little bit much. I'll clean my stamp off. And now for the arms, we want something a little more subtle. So the important thing is to make sure, especially if you're only going to do, say, one side of the arms, and it looks like we got some gesso in that hole there, so you make sure that's clear, is, you know, you have arms that face different directions, obviously. So you want to make sure that if you're going to do it, let's say for the arms this way, that you're stamping on them all while they're facing the same direction. Yeah, I mean, you know, so you've got your right and your left both facing forward. So I think for this one, what we'll do is we'll put all 4 of them right here, and we're going to use this stamp. This is just a little script stamp, but it's got really tiny, tiny letters. So we're going to put this on stamp block, And this time we're going to use another pigment ink. This is Delicata, so it's a dark brown shimmer ink, but it's going to do a much more subtle design than that right there, because we don't want this quite as bold as that one. And this stuff, you know, I'll grab a piece of paper towel here real quick, kind of stamp onto that. See, it stamps really light anyway. See how light that is? So that should be just as light on these here. So we'll get a good amount on there. And we may do this on both sides, but for now I'm just going to do it on the one and see how it looks. Alright, we're just going to get them all at the same time. So that way we know nobody has the same print on there. It'll all be different. With the pigment ink, if you hold it just for a minute, you get a little bit more of it in there. Okay, so see, let me bring these up so you can see them. There we go. It's just a nice subtle bit of texture on there for that. And so, you know, just for fun, let's do the other side too. And there we are. That's super subtle on a couple of these, but that's fine. And then we'll do something to the front of this as well, I think. Maybe the Harlequin with the same, this brown here. Would look really cool. So there's those. Now these should be, yeah, these are nice and dry now. All right, so what are we going to want to do with these? So what I was thinking of, let's scoot those over there, scoot the arms over there, is maybe using one of these stencils. All right, so I have these two. This one is just text, and this one has some different text and things like, you know, it's got this clock here, that sort of thing. But you know, I really like this text, the one that's just a plain text. So I think we'll do that on here. So of course we're going to want to avoid, you know, these areas. It's really hard to do that, but you know, if you do go in here, we can just take them off. So how about we use the Grecian gold? That's a nice pretty gold. All right, and have this here, and then we're going to do both of these. So I have this right here. So this is a silicone paintbrush, but it's really nice for doing these because it you know, it's not going to damage it. You don't have to try to get this stuff out of the bristles of a brush. So let's see, is there anywhere in particular like this? All right, so I'll just do a little bit here. It doesn't take much. You know, you do want to be careful when you're putting it on there. Don't go too crazy pushing it down, because you'll push it down underneath the stencil, and then it won't come out right. I'm going to just lift it straight up and off, and then we are going to sit that right there. And then we'll do the same to this. Now this one we need to make sure nothing's in that center across where this is going to be. It's not a huge deal if it is, only because we can you know, we can scrape it off before we put the thing down. So let's see. Do the same, lift this up and off of here. And with this, I kind of take this and go around and just get those extra bits off. You can also do it, you know, once it's dry, but it's easier to do that way. Okay, so I'm going to go rinse this stuff off, because whenever you use any kind of stencil paste, you have to rinse your stencil off immediately, or it's going to be pretty much unusable. So I'll be right back. So now, before this stuff dries, I am going to go like right in here. Make sure that all these areas here are clear. So you can kind of just take it and scrape it off a bit. Okay, so we're just going to leave that and this to dry. And then we're going to be putting some of the gilding wax around the edge, so it's not going to look as messy as it does right at the current moment. Okay, so leave those there to dry. And we can turn our attention back to this. So on this, thinking putting this here, I do want to do some other stuff as well, like maybe some gears and things, but this will be nice to have this underneath. So, let's see if my glue is going to decide to work for me today. And we're just going to put this down with regular PVA glue. Alright, and so we'll just trim off the excess on the bottom here, keeping in mind that we need to trim it along with this line here. There we go. Yeah, and then when you cover that, you get to see how, you know, straight you're not, but whatever, close enough. And then on the back of this is where I wanted to put the books. So maybe do them this way across, and then obviously I'll cut it along with the contours here. Instead of just trying to have it look like there's books stacked behind her, it can just be kind of part of the outfit. And then we can just go along here. So again, like I've said in previous videos, if you have the Tim Holtz tonic scissors, the small, the medium, the large, they have micro serrations to them. So if you don't want your edge to show the micro serrations, have the tonic logo facing away from what you're cutting. So if I'm going to cut this, I'm going to have the tonic logo facing this way. Yeah, I think we're going to do the... I did X-Acto, that's what I did the last time. It's just I thought I could sneak it into that curve, but apparently not. Let's see, anything else that we want to do to this? Well, we do need to put the stuff around the edges. So this stuff here should be dry enough that it's not going to smudge, and see how it's kind of spread out quite a bit. Where is my... Okay, so I've got two colors here. I've got turquoise satin and mystic turquoise. I'm kind of on the fence as to which one to use. Let me grab my things. So with this stuff, I like to make swatches of it, and I'll make the swatches over black and white because they look different over both. So these are the different waxes here. So like the Opal Magic Wax, which is this one here, if you put it on white, it won't even show up. Otherwise, it gives you a nice kind of a light blue. And then the Mystic Turquoise is over here, and it gives you a much darker blue. So I think we may go with the... Yeah, let's go with the darker blue. We'll go with the darker blue on these, and then if we like it, we'll go with the darker blue on the doll as well. And then the other one will go on the two round pieces. How's that? That should work. All right, so this is the Antique Brilliance. So it also has like a antiquing kind of color in there as well. So you just put it on your finger, and then you rub it on. See? Nice and shiny. It's easier to control than the paint because when you're using a paintbrush, of course, the bristles are going on the other side as well. This is a little easier to control. It still kind of will a little on the edge, but that's okay. Because I actually kind of like that. Okay, so I like this a lot. All right, so flip this over and we'll get the other side. And then this stuff does take a minute or so to dry. It's not terrible, but you do want to keep from, you know, say sticking your fingers directly in it and then touching anything else, because you will get it all over everything. All right, so let's sit that there. Let that dry. we got these ones here done. And this is spreading out even more than it should have, probably because of the way it's reacting to the gesso. So we're going to do something to tone that down. But in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and do the edges of these pieces here, because this stuff is dried enough that we can do that. So I'm going to use the turquoise satin on that one. And this is an Opal Magic, so this is an interference color. So even though it goes on like this, see how it's actually going to show up as turquoise. It's the coolest thing. This is a nice light turquoise color. We'll just go all the way around, and that helps disguise, you know, where we went over with the paint as well. And then, you know, of course you'll get a little bit up here, but see, you're really not going to see it very well. It just really shows up well against the black. Alright, so now let's take a look at these guys here. I mean, it still looks cool, still looks like a design. It looks like maybe we intended it to be that way. Who knows? Arms up here. So we have a couple different options. I do have some other paints that can go over it that are fairly translucent, so they should just kind of tone that down, but then you'll still see that design peeking up through it. So I'm torn between the Opal Magic and the Sparks. So let's see. Now let's try the Opal Magic. So this is Blue Violet. I'm going to grab that again. Okay, so here is how that is, and excuse the crazy white balance thing. On the white it doesn't really matter, but on the black it'll come out. It's either blue or violet, just kind of depending on what's underneath it. And it's nice and translucent, so should be able to do that, and hopefully it'll look okay. If not, we'll just keep putting crap on there until it does, you know. We can paint over it, and we could even put more paper over it if we wanted to. So with these, since again I've already done the wax on the outside, I get a fairly small brush, just so I can be very careful to not go over the edge with it. And luckily the wax is really resistant to anything, so it probably wouldn't hang on to it anyway. Alright, I'm going to go over this. And see, it's just toning that down just a bit. The cool thing is, and that's what I was hoping this would do, is it's doing two different colors basically, because that's what it does. So if you look at it, if you kind of twist it in the light, you'll see a lot of that purple. But if you look at it straight on, everywhere where it's showing black, it's coming up as the purple, and everywhere else it's kind of coming up as the blue. So let's do the rest of these with that. So it's definitely toned that down quite a bit, so it's not as harsh as it was a minute ago. So we'll let that dry. We'll kind of see if we like that, especially once I'll put one of these on here and we can kind of see how it interacts with this. If we need to, we can go over it with the Sparks. Again, the Sparks is very translucent as well. That'll tone it down even further and give it more of the blue kind of teal that we've been using throughout, but this should go with it pretty well. Look at that. And so while I still do, you know, I like the way that looks and everything, it's a bit too much of that purple. So we have another thing we're going to play with here. We're going to put some Lindy's on there. So this is the Looney Toony Teal, and this is very, very translucent as well. But this should hopefully, there we go, get us a little back more to the tone that we're looking for, because it's really different from the back, obviously. So we're gonna have to do something to that as well, but put Put a little bit of this on here. This will dry back quite a bit, but hopefully it'll knock a little bit of that overall purple back towards a teal color. So as you can see, these are still drying, so it's still kind of undetermined whether or not we're going to hit them with the sparks in the mermaid teal. I might. We'll just kind of see how they look. In the meantime, we do know that these here and these we want to go ahead and put some gloss glaze on so we can protect them from anything else we want to do to them. So I'm using the Sculpey gloss glaze. You can use a glossy Mod Podge, I just don't have any. And we're going to go over this so that we can protect this. This will give it a nice shine, and it won't dull the shine of our modeling paste, the gold modeling paste, whereas if you put, say, a matte over it, it might. So we definitely want to preserve the shininess. Okay, so with this, while it did give it more of that teal and kind of knock the purple back a little bit, I'm still kind of not liking that. And it happens with this kind of stuff, you know, just know that you can still keep going, you can still fix it. So we're gonna keep trying until we find something we like. If I can open this. All right, so now we're gonna try this. This should knock back the purple kind of color and bring it to more of a teal. And so you can still see the stuff underneath, but it definitely brings it a little bit more into line with what we had. Now it's completely different from the other side. Wow. We're gonna have to fiddle with the other side too, but we can probably just get away with painting the other side with this. And skipping all the other weirdness. There we go. So we still have a little bit of that purple, you know, underlying it, but it's a lot more in line with the colors that everything else are. So as soon as this dries, I'm going to flip them over. I'm going to paint the other side. And then hopefully these will be dry as well, and we can go ahead and put the base part of it together because that's gonna have to dry for quite a while. So we are back, and these should be sufficiently dry. So I went ahead and did the other side with the mermaid color as well. So now they kind of match a lot better, whereas before they did not. So these are dry enough, and this is dry enough, and this is dry enough that we are going to go ahead and put this part together. It's super duper easy. So what we're going to do is we want to make sure that our little things that we did are going in the same direction. So we're just going to pick an end. We'll pick this end. Why not? And we're going to use a little E6000. So I put a little bit on this tab here, all the way around. And then I'm going to press it into place. And you want it so that it is kind of facing inwards like this. And then if you have extra that squeezes out, just go ahead and wipe it off. So we don't want it to have a big blob of glue on there. So we're going to do these all the way around. And once we've done these, then we'll do the top. Take the top part here, and we're going to go ahead and put the glue onto these. It's just a little bit easier than trying to get them onto those because they're going to try to move around. So Just a little bit in each one. Alright, in this part you do want to be fairly careful, and we want our text going the same way. So we know that this needs to go into the back one. You just got to kind of line them all up. This is the hard part, but it's much easier than doing, say, one at a time or something. That's not going to work out so good. Get everybody kind of lined up on there. Wipe off any excess that came around the side. There. Right, and so we are going to leave that to dry probably overnight. Just be on the safe side because we're going to be doing a lot of stuff in here, making it look pretty as well. So we want this to be nice and solid. So next time we come back, we will work on the doll itself. And we'll get the arms attached. It's easiest to attach the arms and then put the doll in here than vice versa. So we will do that, and I will join you guys once this is dry. So in the last video, we got our stand put together, and it has dried overnight. It actually dried a little bit more than overnight. So that's where we are with the stand. And I do have some cool ideas about the stand here in a minute. But right now, I think it'd probably be a good idea to turn our attention towards the doll figure so that we can go ahead and get it put on the stand. So first thing we need to do is we need to figure out what do we want for her for a head. So there's lots of options. I don't know, this one seems a little small. Probably something a little bit larger. That's not too bad. I don't know, that one would look kind of weird. Doesn't really match. Nope. Yeah, I think I'm sticking with that one. Although, ooh, that one's kind of cool though. You know, I think I'm leaning towards that one. The other one I wanted to try was this one here. Oh, crap. Alright, so it's going to be between these two. Let me put these other ones away real quick. Alright, so in addition to the head, which will be one of these two, well, maybe we'll guess when we have the arms on or something, we need to put the arms on. So we're going to put them in their correct direction. Let's see, which sides do I like best. I like these two. Whoops. Okay, so the arms are going to go like this, and then you're going to have the forearm coming off like this. And so this comes with these brads here. I'll dump these out. So there are a couple things that we're going to need with these brads. We're going to need some sort of pliers and then some sort of snippers, because this stuff it's metal, and it's pretty hard metal, so you really need these in order to get through it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take the forearms and we're going to push the brads through, and it takes a little bit of doing sometimes because that whole you know, we've got the paper, we've got all kinds of stuff in there. So I'll usually kind of start it in there and sort of try pushing it down on the table. Barring that, get the larger awl. There we go. And make sure these holes are nice and wide like they should be, because again, we've put a bunch of different finishes and paints and all kinds of stuff on there, so it tends to close those holes up a little bit on you. In theory, that's done it. It's one of the trickier parts of putting these together, because these are sized right about the same size as the hole itself, so you want him to have a nice tight fit in there. So I'll usually grab it like this, because you've got the two prongs, and sometimes it's that second one is a little bit shorter. It doesn't always want to go in there nice. Okay, so as you saw, that kind of took a little bit of it with it, but it's not a big deal because it's on the bottom part. So this will kind of, you know, hold it closed, but I am going to put a little drop of glue in there just to get it nice and secure. I'll get one of these clips and I'll put it on here for now since we've got to put the other ones in. We'll let that kind of dry a little bit in there. Hopefully the other ones will go in a little easier. Alright, so make sure we're going in the correct direction. That's going this way, yes, so this goes this way. Hopefully this one will put up a little less of a fight. Okay, at least this one didn't take the paper with it this time. Alright, so we've got that one in there. And so these arms are going to go on top of these, and then these are going to go on top of the body. So we can go ahead and put the brads in the upper part of the upper arm as well, since they're going to be difficult, I can already tell. I'm sort of turning it in here because that's actually hopefully going to help kind of clear out the inside of that and keep that second prong together. It's that second prong that does it. It just drives me bananas. And then when all else fails, you can just enlarge the hole. So this is for beading. It's called a bead reamer, but it's got like sandpaper type stuff. And so it's designed for you to just put in and twist and push, and you can enlarge the holes of beads or stuff like this. In theory, that should help us out a little bit. Let's try this again, shall we? All right, now we're going to go through the upper arm with the brad. Oh yeah, see? Boom, there it goes. Much better. So that's all it was. And again, you know, even though you clear that out with the awl and things, you know, every time you paint over it or do anything with it, it will kind of pick up stuff and accumulate it in there. So I should have done a better job clearing those each time I did something to it, but of course I didn't. But no matter, because now it's through. Okay, so now we've got both upper arms and both lower arms. So we're going to go ahead and put the forearm into the upper arm on this lower one. And this is going to be just as fun as the other one was. There we go. Okay. So now we have this. I'm going to push it down real good. Okay. So we want to make sure that we're not leaving gaps between those. And the reason these are different sizes is so that you can grab this top one here and go like this and separate them easier without taking, you know, your fingernails out. So what I do is I kind of turn this so that it's lining up with the upper arm. And usually this is about where I cut this. So as you can see, right about there on it. I'm going to take this over here. Alright, so this one here, again, we're going to cut this down a bit. Actually, you know what? Let's make this flush first. So we're going to go ahead and flatten this, and then I'll take these very gently because you don't want to ruin the finish on the front. And I push down so that it's nice and flat against there. Okay? And then you have this part here sticking up. So that's part I'm going to cut off. Okay, so now we have this part's cut flush, this part's up here, but it's nice and flat. And then now you can move the arms. And generally this will kind of stay, just when you get it into its final, you know, wherever you want your pose, just make sure you've got this up and out so it's not sticking out. Okay, so we got arm number 1. Let's go for arm number 2 and see if I can do it without breaking everything. So now we can put the arms onto the body and clean this mess up here. All right, so this is our front. So we're going to go ahead and put this arm in here. See, it just sits right on there. Same thing. got your two different brads like this, the ends. So what I like to do on this one is I turn it this way so that this is going like this and this is going in towards the center. And then I'm going to go ahead and, like I did on the other one, I'm going to trim this short. And then get this down flush. This one I can pull down mostly flush and squeeze very gently so it's nice and flat, and then cut off this excess right here. So now that's nice and in there, and this is probably going to end up getting covered up with, you know, wings and different stuff like that too. So okay, arm number one. Let's go for arm number two. All right, so there we go. Now we have the arms on there. And let's get this a little bit tighter of a squeeze so it's not quite as loose. Okay, there we go. So now we have arms. And then you can pose these however you want. I usually kind of leave them crossed in the front. And you know, sometimes I'll hang something down from there. So we've got that, and get this out of the way. All right, and so now we can put, let's go ahead and put doll body on here before we decide on the head, because I've got a couple other things that I want to do as well, so maybe that'll help us pick between the two. So we're going to use the E6000 again, and on this we're just going to put a little bit on this surface here, and then I like to put a tiny bit on the front and the back, and that looks like that's coming up too, so I'll get some glue on there. Alright, so now we are going to put it on this surface down here, and just a little bit, because otherwise it's just going to squish out and you're going to have to clean it up. So a little bit on those surfaces, and then I just put tiny dab here and here. And then I've got my print where it's facing this way here. So this is going to be my front. So I'm just going to set this in here in that slot, and I'm going to push it down. And it'll sit in there nice and straight. And then I can go along with baby wipe and wipe any extra glue up. Okay, so we're going to let that sit. All right, so we have gotten to the part where we've got the doll together, and we will be getting ready to do some super fun stuff on the next one. So I will see you guys in that, and hope you've been enjoying this so far. And yeah, have a great night. Okay, made it, Schiff. See you guys later. Bye.